pen. And that's the gasket for the fuel cover. And here's my mistake. What I should have done was used the actual part, not the actual gasket. A bit of an error. Anyway, you get the idea. I'm not overly keen on my long scriber either. It keeps smashing into the chassis, which incidentally is what the camera's hanging off. Oh, filing, power file. Just showing how I file it to the edge, which is incorrect. Excellent. What are you going to do about that? Obviously just keep filing some more off. Oh, that's better. Have a cup of coffee. So we've got here a black granite surface table. Nice and flat. I think it's down to about half a thou. That's the milled surface on the stainless steel, which I'd like to be a nice finish. So I've got some 400 grit paper. The 400 means that if you get 400 of the particles that are stuck to the paper and line them up, they would be exactly 1 inch long. Look at that power sander go. Notice I'm rotating at 90 degrees after each go. Oh, look out, red vice. Dreaded red vice. What's happening here? Oh, that's a bit of aluminium extrusion with some magnets on it. And some rubber, so they are new vice grips. Nice. And they fit. So, having now marked it out with the actual part, not the gasket, I thought I'd finally get the damn thing to shape. And at this point I realised that my swivel vice, which is G-clamped to the bench at the moment, the actual swivels weren't locked, so I better lock them. You can also, by the way, see the front end of the chassis. That little divot or hole in the front there is for the anti-roll bar on the front suspension. If I ever get that far. Looks like I'm going to start filing again. Yep, power file. Oh, look out, I'm going bareback. I'm not using gloves. That'll end in tears. Oh, now I've got a file and 2 G-clamps and some bits of wood. And what I'm attempting to do here is to get the sides completely flat. I've checked that the file is at 90 degrees. What I didn't check was that the file wasn't sitting on the wood properly. So I ended up gouging a ridge into the side all the way around. So filing, clamping, woody, sort of 90 degree edgy thing Mark II. Give it a clean, and off we go. And you just work your way around. And it's not actually filing, it's more of a sort of scouring action. It's very light motion, there's very little pressure applied, but what it does do is make sure that the edge is exactly 90 degrees. It's also tiring work, so I need a lot of cups of coffee. And you can see that gouged area which is finally being sanded away, or filed away I should say. And I'm almost there with that. So yeah, it's looking pretty good. Oh, 120 grit, so we're trying to get the surface to be polished, so I go one way, get bored, my arm aches, and then turn it 90 degrees and do it the other way. And you can actually see how well you're doing by seeing if the scratches in the other direction have completely gone. It's like a burnished finish, I suppose, or a brushed finish that this produces. And again, by using the flatness marking table, you can be assured that it should sand fairly evenly, although it always does tend to sort of sand the edges and curl those over just a tiny bit. But doesn't matter. I'm leaving the other side, the milled finish, just to give the gasket a bit of grip, so I'm not touching that at all. P150. P320. And it's at this point I thought, yep, that'll do for me. Oh no, I didn't. Yes I did, no I didn't. Do a bit more. I think this is actually 400 grit. So it's like a very fine brushed finish. Oh, fire! What the hell am I doing? I'm just playing around here now actually. It's stainless steel, it's got a pretty good finish. I've cleaned it all with carb cleaner. And stainless steel, as you probably know, goes different colours based on temperatures. You often see pipes out of motorbikes slightly straw yellow colour. I'm not entirely sure what temperature that is, but around 315 degrees, which is what I just hit on that corner there, because I haven't heated it up evenly, is where it turns a nice blue colour. It goes from straw through to sort of an orange, and then purple, and then blue, and then a light blue. So I just thought I'd have a go at this. This is incidentally what horologists use to blue the screws for watches. I've seen it done, and they use a... oh, it's a bit hot. Yeah, put some more water on it. Yep, a bit more. Turn it into a sauna. Yep, can't see a thing. Yep, it's a bit hot. I nearly picked it up with my fingers. So yeah, it works. Oh, I'm having another go. So I cleaned it all off again. I'm just seeing whether I can get it slightly more even. The oxide isn't actually that hard wearing. It comes off fairly easily, and I was using, I think it was 800 grit paper wrapped around a file just to clean up the whole surface, which actually polished it a little more. So it's gone straw colour now. It's a bit more even. What you see, it's turning now. It's going that sort of orangey colour, and then it'll start hitting the purple. It's quite a nice effect. What I'd like to aim for is Ford blue, of course, but I'll need to make a little sort of a heatsink tray out of a brass tray, and oh, look out, engine cover. That's the original one with the spiky spike. That hasn't spiked me yet, but I'll keep you informed on that one. Why am I showing you that? That was one that was given to me, so I could just use it just to build up bits for the engine, but it's very heavy, it's cast iron, and it's the wrong vintage, so I got a replica part. C4 is the year. CJ Pony Parts. Excellent. And I was informed by a friend actually that the water pump is reversed flow on a GT40. So that's wrong. Nothing wrong with Pony Parts. I ordered the wrong bit. So he very kindly sent me a used one which has got some pitting on it, but it's good enough for me for bolting bits onto the engine, and I'll start looking for an original decent one. Anyway, oh, and that's the polished up fuel cover, finally, in all its glory. I might try and get it forward blue at some point, but I spent too much goddamn time on it anyway. So that's the state of play. I've gone from one cover, timing cover, to three. None of them which are usable, but hey ho, and in fact you can see the pitting there on the one on the left, right, sorry. Right, so what's next? Spot the spider. Oh, he's just going. Oh, he's gone. So this is the engine mount where I finally pressed in the metallastic bearing, or bushing I should say. You can see the actual plating is degraded quite a bit. Not the manufacturer or the supplier's fault. It's been in my shed for about 6 or 7 years. Anyway, I'm not happy with it. So you get one of those, the world's smallest file, and you end up with that. There's still some residual copper you can slightly see. Part of the plating process is, first of all, they're dipped and coated in copper before the zinc goes on. And as you file off the zinc, you can see the copper underneath, and you file off the copper and you're down to the steel. Taken quite a bit of time, but got nothing else to do. So there's before and after. Let's get the small file, and God, is it going to be a montage of 3 hours of me filing this with that? I hope not. Yep, that's better. No, I didn't use the small file. I did actually on some of the intricate parts, but generally used this file here. And the fact that there's actually a copper layer underneath, that actually helps with the filing, because the first pass, what I'm doing is taking off all of the plating. Also, it's very important to wear a mask if you are going to do this. I've got a full-on face mask which is impervious to everything, including paint vapours and God knows what. It was also one of the hottest days of the year, so excellent. And you can see the copper there. I did notice as well, actually, on that main part which holds the bushing, you see those spiral lines? When the actual part was machined, the tool was not pulled away as the tool fed back along the line, and it produced those sort of marks. Anyway, we'll see whether they disappear when I get rid of the plating. Again, not too much pressure required, quite light filing, and you can see the plating being removed to be replaced by the copper underneath. Once all the plating's gone, I then work on removing all of the copper until you're finally down to the bare steel. And there you go, you can see it's coming away. Just got to do the rest of it now. Oh, there it is, it's finished. And it looks like the press is back in action, so I'm happy with the getting rid of all of the plating, and now I'm putting in the second bushing. I am actually holding the left hand bolted thread there of the actual press, so although it looks like it's going to fall over, it's held sturdily, but it does require quite a bit of force to operate the jack. So I've reached as far as I want to go with the jack on that run, so I need to just disassemble it, adjust the nuts on the jack thing and push the jack back down and start again and push it up a bit more. Off we go again. You'll notice I've got the two washers on the bottom again to protect the inner boss, which protrudes further than the actual outer boss, which is being pressed in at the moment. Again, I am holding the press on the top there, so it's not going to be falling over, but it does require quite a bit of force. And just about there for that pass. And at this point the battery on the camera went, so you missed me finally pressing the last bit in, so what I'm doing now is painting the damn things. So masking tape, a new craft knife blade, and there is actually a tiny chamfer on the inside of the actual mount, which I'm using as a guide for the knife just to go all the way around. Once I've got the masking tape on, this should be the last time I touch them. I've got some lint-free cloth, some carb cleaner, and give them a thorough clean and spray. Remove any residual grease, dirt, grit, dust, and then we're ready to give them a coat of something. So, rookie mistake. First thing I did, I used my hand to actually move it. It's a, I think it's high coat etch primer that I'm using, grey, of course. So, and I'm using some bolts that I've got for the milling machine, which are fixing bolts, just to pick it up and move it around, so I don't actually have to touch it. The spray booth is just an old cardboard box which came with a delivery of some furniture a week or two ago. And there they are hanging, both sprayed. I gave them 2 coats, and just for good measure just went over them a little more. Again, very thin coats is a lot better. There was no, make sure there's no drips or runs. We don't like runs. And the camera is zoomed in a tiny bit. I was a bit concerned. I don't want to get any spray on the lens, but it's actually quite far away. And again, I'm wearing a full mask. Once this was completed, left the door open, vacated the shed for half an hour, and had a cup of coffee. So after about an hour, it takes about 24 hours for the actual paint to fully dry, so they'll be ready then. So I'm just using the Stanley just to pick away the masking tape, and we have 2 engine mounts. Excellent. I don't know what the final colour will be. I might just leave them like that. But I'm pretty happy with the way they worked. Got a tiny bit of overspray there because I didn't... oh, a little bit of something in there. But I used my air line to blow that out. Here it comes. There it is. And yeah, I should have just pushed the masking tape down a little. It probably lifted up when I cut it with a knife, and I didn't press it down all the way around every single part. But whatever, it's an engine mount, get over yourself. But even if you don't agree, I think they look a damn sight better than they did with the plating on them. Maybe it's just me, I don't know. But I like them. pretty good finish. So are we going to get this engine in the chassis then, or what? We're just going to look at the paint job. I'll carry on looking at the paint job. Lovely. Chassis. This is the engine bay. There it is looking towards the front. You can see the engine mounts left and right. The chassis is actually resting on a plank of wood with some wheels on it, or casters. There they are. There's another plank on the front end, again with some casters. And there's all the bolts to assemble the bits of the engine that I've got, and there isn't my front suspension. If we then look down the line of the sponson, this is where the actual, or one of the fuel tanks goes. So back in the engine bay, there's the right hand mount. Bulkhead. Coming round to the left hand engine mount. Getting dizzy now. Oh, yep, fell over, hit something. There's the battery box, and then just pull back out again to the whole of the engine bay. So that's where the engine's going. So let's get the engine in. That's not an engine. That's a Phillips screwdriver screwing some screws into a piece of wood which has got some casters on it. What's going on here? Oh, another bit of wood. Forgot to put the marks in where the holes are going to go. Drill the holes. Countersink the holes. Then realise you've countersunk them on the wrong side. Turn it over. Put the countersinks in the right place. Those bits of wood have got like notches in them and curved bits at the end. What the deuce? Okay, so that's in position. Put all the threads in. And realise I just needed a bit more of a drill to help it go through. So what I'm actually building here is a cradle for the engine. So the engine is movable around the chassis. The bottom of the sump should be about 5 inches above the bench. Currently the chassis is at 4.5 inches, so I can raise all over the chassis, and I'll probably need to anyway to get it level once the engine's in there. So finally drilled those bits and get those screws in. Filing a little bit there, more filing. I could sand it, it is wood, but it's actually a piece of old pine left over from some flooring in my abode, and when you file it you get a fantastic smell of pine, so I thought I'd use that. And there it is. So you can see the little divots there for the Avid pan. I was a bit concerned about using the bottom of that pan. It was sort of scraping along the bench or whatever, dragging the engine around, and I knew you'd need to be able to position the engine, so there it is. A bit more to do. Let's crack on. So I've put a couple of pieces of wood between those parts that sit on the pan. There's also another piece at the back there. Let's have a digression. Oh, 289. Single bump on it. 1966. Set of original heads. These are going to go on the engine. They're going to have quite a bit of work done on them. I think that's the original Ford Blue. But the slight digression here is to do with what's going on in the exhaust port. There's a thermactor bump in this particular casting, and in a couple of states, I think in California, they drilled a hole down there, and they used to pump air in to reduce emissions. Anyway, to get rid of that, I need a die grinder. So, Makita GD600 die grinder. Lovely. So I ordered one of these in anticipation of doing a little bit of porting work, mainly on the exhaust, but we'll see how we go. Yeah, I thought I'd just show opening the box. Two spanners. What are they for? It's pretty hefty actually. It weighs a fair bit, and there's a pretty industrial cable going on there as well. Anything else in there? Is that it? Right, that's it. Move that over there. So I thought I'd make use of it to actually get some of these bits of wood sanded properly. So there it is. Quite a nice mechanism to start it. It's like a little flap, and it's got a tiny sort of trip switch, which is a safety feature on it. There's the little, so I'm trying to press it and nothing happens. You have to press this little button down before the flap actually then operates it. All the die grinders I've seen have been operated by compressed air, but I know you could get them 240 volt, which is what this one is, so I got one. I also ordered some tungsten carbide bits, various shapes, but you get the general idea. 6mm shank, which is what the Makita accepts. We're using a little collet. You'll see that in a second. And I also went to All Star Performance and bought these. So they're basically rolls of grit paper, and you get with them two sort of arbors, again with a 6mm shank. There's a long and a short depending on the length of the roll. And what I'm going to use is the coarsest grit roll I can get, which is that one there. You slide it onto the arbor. And what I'm actually using is the 60 grit paper. And you push it onto the arbor, and if you push it a bit further, if you see the threads there, it sort of screws on. Now what I actually did was put it on the wrong way, so it's actually sort of unravelling it. So I actually did reverse it eventually, before I used it. Anyway, so yep, that'll be used for porting the heads. Take it nice and gradual. Apparently it takes about 40 hours to do it, so we'll see. Anyway, there's the little collet that holds on the 6mm shank, and then over the top of that is a little nut. So one spanner to hold the actual motor, and then the other one to turn the actual nut there. Tightens the whole assembly, and we're ready to go. I think that's a better power file. Yeah, it's pretty hefty, so I'll plug it in, flick the switch, and we'll see what happens. It's very quiet. Oh, that's the Avid pan. You see the two nuts on the bottom there. One's a oil drain. I'm not entirely sure what the other one's for, but I've put a back plate on there, and I'm just sanding away those areas just so as it doesn't interfere with those drain nuts. So that's why I thought I'd just get the Makita out and give it a go. Sun was shining, and yeah, it works pretty well. Keep it moving, stop it burning the wood, of course. It's damn so easy to get rid of that than cast iron, but it's a lot easier than filing it. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Worked well. Also gave me a feel for holding the Makita and seeing what it's like. So here's the end plate. Just screwing it down. We've got another bit of plywood going on here. A square and a plane. A very dirty shed floor. There's a jigsaw down there somewhere. So that's the state of play so far. A couple more bits to add, and I should be there. Get the engine in. So there's the finished article. You see the gap there for the starter motor. It's actually upside down at the moment. I'm not sure I used enough screws on the front there, but whatever. So let's get the engine in. Cup of coffee. Engine block, sump, bell housing. Oh, that's the press, or it was the press. Jack won't fit under there, but it's the same height as the bench. That'll be useful. So I've got to get the engine from there, past the chassis, which is pushed up against the edge of the shed, along the line of the bench. Onto the corner there. You see the corner is supported right up to the edge of that marine ply, which is the base of the bench, if you will. And into, there's the rear hoop engine bay. Got two bolts on the bottom there, not the two suspension mounts slightly above, but they'll appear a little later. There's the wooden engine cradle caster thing. Bit of plywood on top of that beam. Don't want to damage the engine. You need a shave, Watson, and a haircut. So here we go. How heavy is it? Yeah, it's quite heavy. So just supported it, as you can see. The main weight was on the cradle there, so I could just hold it and basically slide it along. Didn't take too long. It was quite warm though, especially when I got in the sun. So tip the engine block up. Now I've got to get it around the corner. So there's two, I think they're about 1.5 inch square pieces of wood resting inside the engine bay, protecting the lower hoop. Push the engine block over and slide it onto the bits of wood, and then try and work out how to get them off the bits of wood. And finally just sort of push the engine block up, rested it on one corner, removed one, rested it on the other corner, removed the other, and engine block is now vertical in the chassis, nearly there. That looks like a oil pickup, that looks like the Avid sump, and that looks like some gaskets. So let's shove those on. The pan is actually freestanding because the engine block is facing sort of slightly forwards due to the bosses for the bell housing. So tighten up the Avid pan and make sure the gaskets are all on there and aligned properly. You can actually rotate the engine 360 degrees. Then it was a case of just pushing it down, and the engine is kind of in the chassis. Not straight and level, but that's where the engine mount's going, so I couldn't resist while it was in there. So not too long to go. Oh, don't knock the chassis. No, no, don't knock the no. Yeah, I'm just knocking the chassis. The ratchet has got a complete sort of rubber on the end, so it's not harming the chassis. Just bang the camera for good measure and probably knock the hell out of the chassis and the pan at the same time here. Here we go. Yep, look at the state of that chassis. Look at that stain on it as well. I don't know how that got there. Moving on. Do up the last bolt for the engine mount, and just sort of thought I'd slide the engine around, see how easy it is to move. Got to get the wheels going in the right sort of direction. It's like a supermarket trolley, but it's pretty controllable. Remember, the engine is higher than the chassis, so it will have to. The chassis will have to be raised. But I thought I'd try this bolt and just slide the engine back just to check for a bit of alignment and see where we're at. So again, the chassis does have to come up, I don't know, we'll have a look. It looks like it's going to be about 1 inch or so. So I'll put the other engine mount in on the other side. And there's one engine mount. We're going to turn the camera upside down. You can see it resting on the actual chassis there. Then camera's still upside down, and you can see the other one. So remember those two bolts I mentioned earlier. Let's get rid of those. They were in there used to while I had the chassis on a rotisserie. So just get rid of those. And in fact, what happens there is that the lower bell housing has 2 ears on it. These points can't obviously be moved, so it's important that they line up with the engine, and then I can see where the engine mounts are going to go. So in order to do that, we need to put the bell housing on. I've done this before somewhere. So there it is, bell housing's on, so that one lines up. I'm pretty happy with that one. So it's about, I don't know, it's difficult to tell, 1.5 inches, 1.25 inches. Again, the chassis is not level, the engine is not level, but just thought I'd have a look. Here comes the money shot. I think we can say the engine is in the chassis.